Shy intern accidentally sat at the VIP table, unaware the man she complained about was the CEO sitting beside her. The room was dazzling with golden chandeliers, shimmering gowns, and the quiet clinking of crystal glasses. Yet, for Emma, a timid intern who could barely raise her voice above a whisper, it felt like stepping into another universe entirely. She had never been to such a grand corporate gala before. Her world had always been limited to library books, thrift store dresses, and her tiny apartment where the wallpaper peeled at the edges. Tonight, she wasn't meant to stand out. She was simply told to assist, observe, and learn. But one misstep, one innocent mistake, would soon place her in the middle of a storm that could change her entire life. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories where the impossible becomes real, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support keeps these heart-touching stories alive. Emma, clutching her small handbag nervously, wandered into the banquet hall. Everything seemed overwhelming. She spotted a table near the center, one draped in velvet, decorated with tall white lilies, and covered in place settings that sparkled under the chandeliers. She didn't realize this was the VIP table, the table reserved for the company's highest executives and honored guests. To her, it was simply an empty seat where she could blend into the background. Heart pounding, she sat down quietly, hoping no one would notice her trembling hands or the fact that she clearly didn't belong. The seat beside her shifted, and a tall man in a sharp, tailored suit lowered himself into the chair. She glanced at him briefly, his presence radiating quiet authority, but quickly looked away. To Emma, he was just another important guest, someone untouchable, someone she shouldn't even try to speak to. As the evening unfolded, Emma felt her nerves heightening. She heard snippets of conversations about business expansions, stock values, and mergers, words she couldn't even pretend to understand. All she could think about was how out of place she felt. Her internship had only started a few weeks ago, and already she felt invisible, overlooked, and painfully small compared to the glittering giants of the corporate world. Perhaps it was her bottled-up emotions or the weight of months of struggling alone, but when she finally spoke, it slipped out in a whisper she thought no one would hear. She leaned closer to her plate, her eyes fixed on the flickering candle, and said softly, "I just don't understand how a CEO can be so cold, so unreachable. It feels like he doesn't even see the people who work so hard for him." She thought no one had heard. She thought it was safe to vent quietly in her own invisible corner. But the man beside her turned his head slightly. His sharp eyes softened with a hint of surprise. He didn't say a word. Emma, too lost in her own thoughts, didn't notice. She kept going, her voice still low, more like a confession to herself. "Sometimes I wonder if people at the top even remember what it's like to be human, to be scared, or to struggle. Maybe that's why interns like me never feel noticed. To them, we're just shadows." Her chest tightened as she realized how much she had revealed. She quickly lowered her gaze, ashamed of herself. She had no idea the man sitting silently beside her was none other than Alexander Reed, the CEO of the company, the very man she had just accused of being unreachable. Alexander remained still, his jaw tightening as he studied the shy young woman beside him. He had grown used to admiration, fear, and flattery, but not honesty. No one dared speak about him like that, not even behind closed doors. And yet, here was an intern who didn't even realize who she was talking about, pouring her heart out with raw truth. The evening stretched on, and Emma tried her best to stay quiet, but her slip had already set something in motion. The next day, when she arrived at the office, she found herself summoned. Fear coursed through her veins. She thought she was about to be fired. But instead, she walked into the CEO's office and froze, seeing the same man from the gala, the same sharp eyes, the same quiet power. Her knees nearly buckled as the realization hit. She had been complaining about him. From that day on, Emma's life became a tangled mix of fear, curiosity, and unexpected opportunities. Instead of dismissing her, Alexander kept noticing her. He asked her to assist on projects that interns were never part of. He listened when she shared ideas, even when her voice trembled. At first, Emma thought it was a cruel game, that he was testing her, waiting for her to fail. But slowly, she began to see something else. He started showing up at her desk, asking if she had eaten lunch. He listened when she spoke about her family, about the small apartment she shared with her younger brother, about the dreams she carried quietly in her heart. He was still intimidating, still a man wrapped in steel and shadows, but when he looked at her, there was warmth in his eyes that the world never saw. Emma struggled to believe it. How could a man like him, wealthy, powerful, untouchable, take interest in someone like her? But the truth was, Alexander hadn't heard honesty in years. He hadn't been reminded of what it meant to be human until her trembling voice at the gala cracked through the walls around his heart. The challenges only grew. Rumors spread in the office. People whispered about why the CEO suddenly cared so much about a mere intern. Emma felt the weight of their judgment. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear back into the shadows where she felt safe. But each time she tried, Alexander's quiet strength pulled her back. He didn't let her fade away. Their bond deepened, not through grand gestures, but through small moments. When her brother fell sick and she couldn't afford the hospital bills, Alexander appeared, not with charity, but with his presence. He sat with her in the sterile waiting room, his hand steadying hers. When she cried, afraid of losing everything, he didn't speak, he simply stayed, his silence louder than 1,000 promises. Emma's shyness remained, but slowly, she began to stand taller. She began to find her voice, not only because she was learning to believe in herself, but because someone else finally believed in her too. And Alexander, the man once seen as unreachable, began to change as well. The cold CEO became a man who laughed quietly at her nervous rambling, who softened when she smiled, who found himself longing for the girl who once dared to speak the truth about him. By the end of her internship, Emma was no longer invisible. She had become a woman who could look the world in the eye, knowing that even the most powerful man in the room had once chosen to sit beside her, and stay. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us continue bringing you emotional, inspiring stories like this one. Sparkle's special request to comment: what would you have done if you realized the person you were unknowingly complaining about was sitting right beside you?